Good evening. I am extremely excited and proud to bring you today's newsworthy video. It is a special one dedicated to the women who wrote India's constitution. Now, often on days like the Republic Day, we hear and talk about India's freedom struggle and the architects of our republic. But often it tends to be the case that we see and talk about men. History tends to be his story. 15 women sat in a 374-member Constituent Assembly that gave us a guiding, abiding document, the Constitution of India. These 15 women were in the drafting committee headed by B.R. Ambedkar and several other subcommittees. These 15 women had a lot in common, their diversity of experience and views. They were lawyers, freedom fighters, politicians, grassroots workers, social reformers. They came from different social structures, different caste backgrounds, different religions. Their life experiences, among many other things, included denial of education, child marriage, domestic violence, caste-based violence, and widowhood. And together, all of this shaped the debates and discussions in the Constituent Assembly, some that are extremely relevant even today. We're going to profile them one by one. Let's start with Ammu Swaminathan, or Ammu Kutti, as she was fondly called. A fearless social worker and politician. She was the co-founder of the Women's India Association, the WIA, at Adyar in Madras, where she worked for the rights of women workers. Now, mind you, the WIA was one of the first organizations to demand universal adult franchise and constitutional rights for women. This is crucial because India, unlike many countries in the West, did not really have a separate movement for the right to vote for women. Women here had the right to vote in provincial legislatures in the early 1920s. They stood for elections by the late 1920s and later via a Government of India Act. Like Ammu Swaminathan, who endorsed mandates giving equal rights to women in India, the second one on our profile, Hansa Jivraj Mehta, actually demanded so much more. A prominent global name then and now, Hansa Mehta is actually responsible for ensuring that Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was changed from all men are born free and equal to all human beings are born free and equal. She was president of the All India Women's Conference, an organization you're going to hear about repeatedly in this video. At the Constituent Assembly, where she was a member of several committees, she rejected reserved seats, quotas, or separate electorates. We have never asked for privileges. What we have asked for is social justice, political justice, and economic justice, she said in December of 1946. On the 15th of August 1947, just a few minutes after midnight, she, on behalf of the women of India, presented the national flag to the Assembly, the first flag to fly over independent India. Now, many among these 15 women represented provinces and princely states at the time the constitution was being drafted. So, decentralization was a crucial concern for them. Annie Mascarene, who represented Travancore Cochin, was actually a supporter of provincial independence and fiscal decentralization. She sought the integration of the princely states within India, and she served in the select committee that looked into the Hindu Code Bill. She had many firsts. First woman to join the Travancore State Congress, first woman Minister of Parliament from the Travancore Cochin state.
Dakshyani Velayudhan was the only Dalit woman to be elected to the Constituent Assembly. At 34, she was also the youngest. Her life and politics were influenced by the rigid caste system in Kerala. In the assembly, she argued against separate electorates and untouchability. She was among the first few from the Pulaya community to be educated and the first woman to wear a cloth on her upper body. A close associate of Gandhi, she married her husband R. Velayudhan, also a Constituent Assembly member, in Wardha's Sevagram ashram. Communalism, whether Harijan, Christian, Muslim, or Sikh, is opposed to nationalism, she said in the assembly. Next, Begum Aizaz Rasul, the only Muslim woman member in the Constituent Assembly. A member of the Muslim League, her first intervention was to demand autonomy for ministers from party affiliations. She was key in developing a consensus among the Muslim members of the assembly to give up the demand for a separate electorate. She formally gave up the parda in 1937 when she won her first election from a non-reserved seat. Rasul voiced strong opinions on reservation, which she felt increased the divide between minorities and majorities. She also believed that the fundamental rights should have lesser exceptions to ensure strong civil liberties. Each of the 15 women here had to fight for their rights in one way or another. Durgabai Deshmukh, a prominent social reformer, organized women satyagrahis in the Salt Satyagrah. For this, the British arrested her 3 times between 1930 and 1933. Durgabai emphasized the need for separate family courts after studying the same during her visits to China and Japan. Kamala Chaudhry was a Hindi feminist author. She actively participated in the civil disobedience movement. A member of the Constituent Assembly, she served in the provincial government after the constitution was adopted as well. Leela Roy was a feminist freedom fighter and social worker who worked for the education of women. She was elected from Bengal to the assembly, and she resigned from her post in protest against the partition of India. In 1947, she founded the powerful Jatiya Mahila Sangathi in West Bengal, and in 1960 was the chair after her party merged with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's Forward Bloc. Malati Chaudhry, as a member of the Constituent Assembly and president of the Utkal Pradesh Congress Committee, emphasized the role of education, especially adult education in rural India. She criticized the constitution's over-reliance on the constitutions of other countries. She resigned from the assembly in December 1946 to join Gandhi in Noakhali, where communal tensions had sparked riots. Before and after, she fought for the upliftment of vulnerable communities in Orissa through organizations like Bajirao Chhatravas, which she also founded. She joined the Bhudan movement of Acharya Vinoba Bhave and was deeply influenced by Tagore and Gandhi. FYI, she was nicknamed Tufani by Gandhi for her energy in the fight for freedom. Purnima Banerjee, one among a radical group of women from UP at the forefront of the freedom movement. As secretary of the Indian National Congress, she organized trade unions, took part in farmer meetings, and worked towards promoting greater rural engagement. All this experience played out in the assembly, where she spoke of rights of those in jail. Along with Renuka Ray, who we will talk about later, Purnima Banerjee argued for equality in education and raised questions about religious educations in publicly sponsored institutions when the Hindu Code Bill was being discussed. Perhaps you have heard of Banerjee's more famous older sister and freedom fighter, educator and activist Aruna Asaf Ali. Amrit Kaur was elected to the assembly from the United Provinces. Her significant contribution was in ensuring extensive political participation of women. She became the first woman to hold a cabinet position in India as health minister. The Lady Irwin College in Delhi and the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, or AIIMS, are a few of the reputed organizations that owe their existence to her. In the assembly debates, many, like Amrit Kaur, Renuka Ray and Hansa Mehta, were in favor of a uniform civil code, which ultimately did not get passed. A civil law that overrides personal laws in favor of a common set of rules remains a contentious issue even today.
Now, the Constituent Assembly debates were shaped by the rigor and contributions of these 15 women. Next on our list is Renuka Ray, joined the Constituent Assembly from West Bengal. A graduate of the London School of Economics, she made several interventions in these debates on minority rights, women's rights, and the two-house structure that India has. She joined, like many others, the All India Women's Conference and campaigned for inheritance rights for women in parental property. She later went on to become the president of this organization. Also, she served on the first Planning Commission and headed the Social Welfare and Welfare of Backward Classes Committee. It popularly came to be known as the Renuka Ray Committee. She and Ammu Swaminathan were actually critical of the length and bulkiness of the Constitution. Ammu Swaminathan had spoken about wanting the Constitution to be a pocketbook of sorts, easily understood and easily accessible by the general public. Next on our list is Saroji Naidu. Most of you possibly know about her, a freedom fighter, prolific poet, and popularly known as the Nightingale of India. The first female president of the Indian National Congress and later governor of the United Provinces. Also a first for women in India. She used her literary prowess to take India's fight for independence across the world. A champion for women's rights, she actually argued for the women's right to vote and universal adult franchise to be embedded into India's constitution like it is. Next on our list is Sucheta Kripalani, prominent freedom fighter and member of the Quit India movement. She established the women's wing of the Congress party in 1940. She sang Sare Jahan Se Acha, Vande Mataram in the independence session of the Constituent Assembly. She went on to then serve as Member of Parliament from Delhi and later India's first woman Chief Minister from Uttar Pradesh. We know she married J.B. Kripalani, also known as Acharya Kripalani, a noted Gandhian, parliamentarian and social reformer. The reason we are saying this is that despite different political loyalties, they were united in their vision for a great India. The last one on this list of 15 is Vijayalakshmi Pandit. Activist, ambassador, diplomat, revolutionized, some would say, the role of women in nation building. In 1936, she was elected to the Assembly of the United Provinces. A year later, became the first Indian woman to become a cabinet minister in British India. She actually was one of the first leaders to call for an Indian Constituent Assembly to frame our constitution. Now, if one had to guess, it would possibly have been hard to carve a name for oneself as the sister of Jawaharlal Nehru, but Vijayalakshmi Pandit did that with grit and grace. Now, this brings us to the end of these 15 trailblazers. They are not to be forgotten. Their role in the Constituent Assembly actually serves as a reminder today of many things. Diverse, strong, independent thinking, their vision for India and the unique route India's women charted towards political empowerment. I'm urging you to save up this video if it's too long, come back to it, read more about all these women. For those among you who think this video is too long, we have a shorts playlist that's up on YouTube. I'm linking it up right here. You're also going to find this series on our Instagram guide. Now, I have to admit, this has been sort of a personal mission to make sure we know more and more about these 15 women who drafted India's constitution in as many formats as possible. Books, children books, comics books, etc. Well, we can't do it just by ourselves. We need your contributions to make that happen. I'm urging you to contribute in whichever way you can. Use the Super Thanks feature on YouTube to make a contribution, or go on to our Razorpay link. It is in the description on YouTube and in our bio on Instagram, and make a contribution. From our entire team here, thank you so much for watching and a happy Republic Day.